Well, folks, I'm here today with my good friend Jan Haugo. Welcome, Jan.
Hello, Joe. Good to see you.
Yep. And Jan is here because she has embraced AI. That's an understatement. And she's now tasked and she's taken on the mission to bring AI training and empowerment to the profession. Jan recently presented on this topic at Scaling New Heights and was the only breakout, I believe, in the history of the conference, Jan, to get a standing ovation. We've had that happen in our main stage, but not in our breakouts before. And I think it's because people are really hungry for this topic and you gave it to them in a way that they could actually use, right? Practical guidelines, demystified it a bit, helped them with some prompts they can use to actually change their lives. Jan is with Smart Accountant AI, and through Smart Accountant AI, she runs the Smart Method Bootcamp. It's a foundational AI training program that's seen 100% adoption among participants, along with a done with you training and direct AI implementation for firms ready to make real operational changes. And we were talking in the hallway just prior to Scaling New Heights starting. We were talking about this new metric that Microsoft is saying is going to enter the space of, all right, now here are your productions. This is what you did for the quarter when you're talking to your teams. And then managers are going to start asking, what was the human to bot ratio? And
Mhm.
what struck me with that, Jan, is, you already had that number. I asked you in the hallway, what is your human to bot ratio? And your answer is
70-30,
70-30 in favor of
the bots.
the bots. So,
Mhm.
folks, this is not theoretical. 70% of the productions that take place in Jan's practice are artificial intelligence bots. 30% is human effort. And quick question before we get into some of the more broad questions. Um, Obviously, that's had an impact on your bottom line. What's your percentage of increase in gross profit as a result of this move?
Wow. Actually, it's probably been, as a startup, it takes that drag out a little bit, the learning curve. But I would say probably a good 35 to 40%
Yeah.
increase.
So 35, 40% bump in GPM. So
Yep.
that should get everybody's attention here. It's a big deal.
Mhm.
And to kind of give you something testimonial, we use Claude extensively over here. And we're using Claude to generate listening guides for all 120 of our breakout sessions, which will be available for streaming to those that attended the show and bought the Plus package. And that would have taken a human being about a month. A really good human being would have had to work 40 hours a week for a month, about 160 hours. And instead, that whole process of feeding it the prompts and reviewing what they wrote, getting up into the website, it's going to take somebody about 3 days. But they came to me and they said, I'm not sure what to do. We've already spent $300 in tokens and we're only 75% through. And so I had to give that person perspective, right?
Yep. Yep.
$300 in tokens plus 2 days or 3 days versus a month of your salary. I think we're coming out pretty well here. And then the light bulb came on, right? So
Yes.
we may get into sort of the relativity of price when it comes to this kind of software and other software solutions. But I just want to kind of hit this first topic out of the gate: AI adoption and accounting practices. You know, a lot of people want to know where the profession stands because they want to know where they stand in relationship to the profession, right? Are they behind? Are they ahead? Or are they grossly behind? Have they been negligent to the topic at all? So, what are you seeing? Where does the profession actually stand as we record this in July 2026? And for those that are not where they need to be to that benchmark, what's holding them back?
Yeah, great question. I always tell people when I start my boot camp, you are exactly right where you need to be today, right? Don't measure yourself against another firm or where the industry is. And I know that's hard, and that's not exactly what we're trying to figure out here. But the thing is accountants just came out of their April 15th shells, right? The entire industry. And they opened up and they said, wow, there's this thing called AI. But it had been going on 2 to 3 years before that. The marketing and the sales and all of these other industries have really adopted a lot faster than accountants. they don't have the regulatory compliance issues that we do. And so people are learning at their own pace, but they are starting to try to compare themselves to other individuals who kind of show off the shiny tools. And it's not about shiny tools, it's about workflows. And it's about finding your place with your firm. And for the first time in history, Joe, we have a tool that is completely customizable to your firm. It's not going to look like that guy's, and it's not going to look like that lady's. So for me, you're at the right place at the right time whenever you start. Now, if we hit 6 months down the road and you haven't started, I'm going to tell you a different story.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting what you say about that customized for me. We had those options on the table, and I've gone down the paths so many times with these low code or no code platforms, ClickUp, Method, Salesforce, even Microsoft Dynamics CRM, Sage CRM, QuickBase. I mean, just the whole list of things.
Yeah.
And those are still very viable technologies. As a matter of fact, you can use AI to help AI to configure everything from your table structure, your data schema to your screen designs, streamline a lot of the legwork. But we decided pre AI that we were not going to go down that custom path anymore, because you coding it is the first challenge, but then you end up with all these internal customers in the company, all of whom have their own feature requests, bug reports, platform updates, break things. You have to unbreak things. And we decided we're only going to use software that comes out of the box, maybe with some zaps or something in between. And now we're pivoting back because instead of because we're in control of our own code, even though we don't know how to code. And this is a real distinction that I want to make sure everybody took away from what Jan said. Now we can build custom apps without knowing code. And when something does need to be done, we simply go back to Claude or back to Gemini, wherever we got that done, and say something broke, evaluate, and it'll find it 99 times out of 100. If not, you can just say, fix this, whatever it takes, and it'll rewrite that section of code. And it does that while you're doing other work on a simple prompt. Now, there are some complexities when you start serving out apps in actual URL addresses. I won't get into it here, but when you're building internal apps, Claude calls them artifacts, then you don't even have to worry about where you serve out the data and where you serve out the user experience. Everybody operates it inside of Claude. So I would encourage you to think, if you're like me and the pendulum switched more toward out of the box apps and not as many custom apps, just know Woodard's swinging back with this technology toward reasonably building our internal apps that work just for us. I got so then what's holding firms back? I mean, if this is the opportunity and you're seeing a lot of firms that are embracing this, don't necessarily benchmark you based on your peers, because this is all new. You're not as behind as you think you are. But if we have firms listening in and they're like, no, not going to do it, or regardless of the benchmark, I know I'm grossly behind. What have you learned, Jan, that's holding these firms back?
I think the number one thing I hear is security, right? People are concerned about security, and rightfully so. The IRS just came out with some guidelines, I think last Friday or 2 weeks ago, and they're starting to draw those lines. And so it is a huge concern. If you're credentialed, it can mean your license. So caution is always great, but that's the number one worry that we have. The second worry is they don't know where to start, right? And that's been the difficult case because it's overwhelming. And we always just say, start with one problem. And I teach a methodology called pain problem prompt, which is identify the pain, tell me what the problem is, and we'll generate a prompt from it. And that prompt will kick you off in order to start your solution. But that's one little piece. And then finally, I think that the last thing is that, the documentation, mapping the workflows, it's overwhelming because we're MacGyver, right? We don't necessarily have a straight line from here to here. We might have 2 or 3 apps in the middle, a Zap. We can have a lot of manual processes, and it's in somebody's head. And so, trying to get it out into SOPs. One of the first things we create is an SOP generator to show how easy and quick that is. And then secondly, it's not for the human. The SOPs are for the bots or the agents or the tools that you're using. And then secondly, teaching them how to map. The biggest thing that I think is hard is learning how to think with an AI brain rather than thinking with how do I get from here to here.
What do you mean
Why?
by AI brain?
Yeah, the AI brain is really an inquisitive brain, and it's really about being, you know, for accountants, it's really about being creative. And you don't hear about creative accountants because they're in jail, right?
Right,
And
right,
so,
right.
so the thing is like we've never been taught to be creative. So if you can think it, it can be done, and that's just never happened for the accounting world. And so that brain is the brain you need to bring when you sit down with AI. Don't Google it. Don't ask, what can you do? Say, here's my problem. And what are your suggestions how I fix this?
Well, and yeah, and I can't stress enough, it can start that easy and then let it
Mhm.
kind of lead you down the logic path.
Yeah.
Like I would encourage somebody to go do this. If you've got Claude, you don't even have to use Fable, just Sonnet, just go into Claude and type in the words, I need a fixed asset application. Don't
Mhm.
it could be that simple. Then Claude's going to ask you all of the questions it needs to ask you, and it's going to want to know what depreciation methods, what type of assets, what disposition methods. It knows everything that it knows it needs to know, right?
Mhm.
That's a lot of knows there, and it will ask the right questions. So by the time you get done with that, it will produce something that is highly functional. Then you're going to be able to in Claude go play around with it, and you're going to instantly see that you need some things, need some things moved, need some things repositioned. You need a depreciation method that's not in there. You just keep chatting. Add this depreciation method, give me an edit and delete button on this asset. I need a QR code for every asset. Just keep telling it, and in blazing speed, it just bring those features to you.
Agree.
You'll be amazed at what Claude will build with just minimal prompts from you if you just ride the currents. It's almost like surfing the AI brain.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
rather than having to be the biggest brain in the room.
Absolutely. It's the smartest guy in the room, right? Right there,
Yes,
sitting
not
with
the
you.
wisest,
No,
but the
not the
smartest.
wisest, the
Yeah,
smartest.
and that's a
Absolutely.
that's a very important distinction. I think that kind of gets us into this next one. Um, the shift from compliance to strategic advisory. This is the narrative that has actually been in the space since bank feeds, right? Automate to liberate to elevate. And I've never seen those three things in one place. I just put those together because they all ended in eight, right? So you automate and you elevate. Well, we're hearing it more than ever with AI because with AI, this automate the process is on steroids. It's unfathomable 5 years ago. Now we really see this light at the end of the tunnel. We don't have to do the research associated with tax analysis. We don't have to do nexus research for sales tax. We don't have to even file the sales tax returns. Um, it's become easier than ever to do that in multiple jurisdictions. We don't have to prepare income tax returns. We do not have to reconcile bank accounts, record transactions, or even do complex accruals. AI is capable of handling all of those things with the human in the loop, which is a term you're going to hear a lot. So now we actually have a pathway to capacity where we can do strategic advisory.
Mhm.
All right. How is AI creating that capacity? How are, more importantly, accountants responding when they get that capacity? Are you seeing them use it to elevate?
Yeah, a bit. What I see is kind of the old mindset of I have more capacity, now we're going to take on more. And I actually say the reverse. Don't take on more. Allow yourself that breathing room to be creative and to think outside that box and become strategic. You don't become strategic overnight if you haven't been. If you've been compliance oriented, that shift is a little bit of a mental shift. It's a little bit of a jump. I think the hardest part is the accounting world just says turn it like it's a light switch. And it's not a light switch. It's a path, it's a journey, and it's something where we have to get back into our own firms and not only understand our firms, but understand the people that we're serving. And that hasn't happened in a long time. We've been so busy just doing the things. So for me, getting back in and getting that breathing room when you have that gap, the initial knee jerk is fill it up with more clients. You can do that, but make it efficient with the work of the AI doing that heavy lift and then learning about how you can serve those clients. And to me, that's something that there are a lot of firms that are doing it well. And when they get that break, they need to take advantage to, again, rocket ship, propel themselves even farther ahead.
Yeah, I've read some studies, one of them recently in the New Yorker, where people are, it's not just accountants, people are
Yeah.
filling in the capacity with more productions. And maybe in some ways that's good. Um, we've never been able to have listening guides for our on demand videos at Scaling New Heights before because it would have been cost prohibitive to create them. So,
Yep.
in a lot of ways, it is making our life, it's improving upon what we're doing. But my team hasn't gotten any capacity back. I just filled it up with a new thing, a new innovation, an enhancement for our customers.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and then the other side of the coin, and this is a real concern among the people who are watching sort of workers' rights. There's concern that the demands of a person for what they're being paid will double, and AI is supposed to promise some doubling or tripling or quadrupling of productions disproportionate to headcount. But then the one person who's still sitting there is the human in the loop, now corralling 4 to 10 times the actual work, however
Mm-hmm.
much AI may be carrying the weight on that work. Their life hasn't actually changed. Their work has probably increased in its workload. And I haven't yet seen any evidence that employers are going to go, and here's more money for all that extra help you're doing. They're looking at it like, and we're getting 10 times the work with one person
Mm-hmm.
and some tokens. So I think there's the corporate world's going to have to figure out how to compensate a little bit more on outputs instead of inputs. The same thing we're trying to do with our clients. It's not that the person was there from 9 to 5. Let's pay them the same thing. It's, how much did this person adapt to the AI, leverage the AI as compared to their peers, and what was the benefit or the value or the outputs of that for the company? Now let's throw more money at that person. Um,
Yeah.
it's an
Yeah.
inputs
Agreed.
outputs paradigm.
Well, it really is. And I have team members who are going through the training and building. So we eat our own dog food. We teach them how to build. We teach them how to develop. So when we sit down to have those pricing conversations and pricing for their job, for their role, for what we're doing, I sit down and I say, what have you built? What have you done to move the needle? Show me, because I don't always see it, but I want to know and I want to hear from them what value they've brought, not to just the firm, but to their role and to their quality as a human being in this world. Like, what are you doing to give yourself that break to go out and be more creative? How many
Yes.
things have you built? So the encouragement is you should be working yourself out of a job. You should be building that 70% every time you see a new task. Don't look at it like, okay, I've got to do this. Look at it, how can the AI do this? And I can create that.
But then when they work their way out of, and I'm going to call it a role, not a job, when they work their way out of that role,
Mm-hmm.
they get a breadth, but they also now back to the strategic advisory piece, they get to take on a new role in the same job, right? A new
Mm-hmm.
role, a higher, more elevated role. But is I'm pausing because I don't know that the majority of bookkeepers and tax preparers are prepared to take on that advisory role. So yeah, they've got the capacity, but they don't have the soft skills, or in some cases with financial analytics, the hard skills, the technical skills to do the job. Um, do you think we're going to have a sort of school of advisory boom? They're going to be craving this kind of education.
I do, and I kind of look at advisory in multiple ways. The greatest thing I see, and one of the biggest problems, is that we don't give the AI enough context. We give it what we think it needs to know. Well, guess what? There's a lot more information that your clients are feeding you that are not making it into the AI. So advisory isn't just about the numbers. It's about a holistic view of how your firm is serving that client, what your client is doing in their world, and how those two pieces come together. And then also, where do they want to go? So if you feed it information, let's say meeting summaries and things that they've told you, or emails that have said, hey, I'm retiring, I want to retire in the next 10 years. I've got a set of twins that need to go to college, and my wife just lost her job. That is something that is that soft skill that's never been brought forward before, but people can empathize with that. And that is a form of advisory. Now, you can have the financial advisors and you can have the empathetic advisors.
Hmm.
The AI does the financial advising extremely well and guides you. So it can also be your learning curve. I do think we're going to see a bigger boom, but I think that the advisory, as we look at it in accounting, is going to expand into more of a service-based, service producing than just the numbers. I mean, how awesome is it when you go into a client and you say, I was looking at these projections, but we talked about that 6 months ago. Honestly, the world has shifted, and I know that you're looking to go on vacation. And while you're gone, I'm going to work this and this and this up, and I've already done this for you. So how good is this if we can sit down and just have a conversation when you get back? But you think about it when you're vacation, and let's just really brainstorm this. Who does that with their clients?
Well, not enough, not enough. And going into that meeting and saying, what are the outcomes you would like me to drive, and then helping them to think outside the box. Um, Patricia Hendricks, who heads up our coach program, back when she had her own practice, we did a couple of seasons
Yeah.
of a show called Tech Makeover, and that is what she went into season 2 asking. Real
Yeah.
clients, by the way, not reality, not scripted, not fake. We would go in with the cameras and followed her around as she was doing a business transformation, and it was a mom and pop, huge growth, kind of victims of their own success thing. 2 teenage daughters played soccer, and they wanted to. And so at the end, sort of the end culmination of that conversation was, we only have about 3 more years left with our daughters before they're going off to school,
Mhm.
and we can't see them. We're too busy. We're held up here every night. So she kept using that as the baseline.
Yep.
We're about halfway through with this project. We've accomplished this. And then she wouldn't say, how does it make you feel? Or she wouldn't say, and here are the numbers for your increased production gains. She would go, how many soccer matches have you made it to?
Yep.
She used that as
Exactly.
the metric of success. And then when she got to the end, they were at every single soccer match. And then we even sent the cameras out, filmed them at the soccer match, right? Which wasn't something we contrived. It was an actual documentary of what was happening.
Hmm.
So I'm right there with you 100%. But now we've got the liberation to focus on our clients' families as a goal, which we never would have had the mind share for that. And we have the ability with AI to actually drive those kinds of indirect outcomes. Um, what I would say too is, just don't underestimate what the AI can do. Like if you just want to ask it an open-ended question in a secure private version of AI, here's my client's profit and loss. Here it is year to date. Here it was last year. Here's their balance sheet. This was their balance sheet at the end of the last fiscal year. I have about 30 minutes to talk to my client. What are the 5 things I should bring up or ask them? And it will give you a fantastic answer of the 5 things you need to bring up or ask them. And advisory is about 90% asking questions and about 10% giving answers. Walk
Absolutely.
in with the right questions, and you're going to be fine. You're going to be a strategic advisor very fast. Thoughts on that,
Absolutely.
Jan?
No, 200% agree with you. It's about having conversations that we've never been able to have before, and being in the room with the client and being present. And I feel like the AI is allowing us that gift right now. Maybe not in a year, but right now we have that gift.
Yep. And I'll tell you, I know this sounds crazy, but if you feel like your soft skills have atrophied, It's a classic. I don't care if you read it before. Go back and do a reread on How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie,
So
and
good.
get that soft skills part of your brain fired back up.
Yeah.
It really does work. Just and there are other soft skills books too. I don't want to run out of time before I ask you this big one. A business owner adopting AI in their own autonomy.
Hmm.
Okay, we can do that. We can start asking questions, poking around, experimenting. But moving an entire team into that kind of functionality with AI, um, is training alone what they need, or are there going to be some other steps?
You know, I believe in training because that's what I started, right? Was
Mhm.
training. And what I hear often from firms is, oh, well, I think somebody over there is using AI, and this person told me that they were using Claude the other day, and this person built something, and that is phenomenal. But you don't drive change by having one-offs, right? The people that are moving the fastest aren't the most tech savvy. They're the ones where the owner has decided that they're making it happen and it's a priority for the whole team, not just for themselves, like they're just using Claude by themselves, but they can actually sit down and say, team, this is our game plan and we're moving forward. And having that plan, getting them into a mindset where we're all doing this, whether you're a detractor or not, once the team starts moving, you'll see those people coming. And when you get a firm where the owner has adopted, that barrier is gone. Usually the barrier is the firm owner. Once you get that out of the way, the firms move fast.
And what I'll also tell you, because that is true, and I'm experiencing that over here,
Hmm.
they will move so fast that you better have some guardrails on this thing before
Yep.
you put it in their hands, right?
Yep.
So I would say we've got training, and then we have sort of pick a platform and have excellence around the platform. But if I were listening to this podcast and I was the business owner, or in the larger firm, I'm the CTO, I'm going to write up a governance document. I'm going to have everybody read it, train to the governance document,
Yep.
have them sign it, and then I'm going to reinforce that with granular permissions in whatever platform. So Claude
Absolutely.
101 is great, but jump straight to security, permissions, and privacy sections of Claude training. Make sure all those gates are turned off. Make sure that, and a suggestion here I would make, and Jen, you can tell me if you think I'm overprotective, but we do have Claude. We do not allow Claude to interact with browsers in any
Right.
way.
Correct.
We do allow it to see the internet, but not interact with browsers. We don't allow the memory that it gains from user A to be shared with user B. And
Right.
this will all make sense to you when you go to the Claude training. And most importantly, we don't allow it to write to any other third party software. It can read things within permission constraints, but only my CTO and I can ask Claude to go change something in a third party app. All right. So,
Hmm.
what are your thoughts on
Excellent.
all of that?
That's excellent. Absolutely excellent. I will add two things that nobody's talking about that it just drives me crazy. You're either Google or Microsoft. I don't know anybody else outside of that. And if you are, I apologize.
There's a
You
little
have
bit of an Apple business community, but yeah.
a little, but usually I say to people, are you Google House or Microsoft House? And they'll say, well, we use Outlook or we use Gmail. Absolutely. Those are two of the most powerful enterprise products with enterprise protection you will ever have. And so start with the tools already in your hands. People want to go to Claude and to chat because it's the shiny new objects and they are spending millions and billions of dollars. But Gemini is excellent, and the Notebook LM is excellent. And when you work within that enterprise boundary, your security features are those paid business programs and platforms are astronomical and honestly great barriers. And the same with Microsoft. Copilot is coming up, and their co-work that they've just come out with, I mean, outstanding. So I think people overlook that, and I teach a workflow to that. And for me, working inside of those helps the accountants with that comfort of
Yeah,
that
it's like
security.
training wheels almost.
It
Not, but
is
that's not
so
an
good.
accurate metaphor because they can actually be very powerful too. But the initial use of it's a form of training wheels. Also, the AI that lives inside of the apps that you use and trust. Xero
True.
has Jax, Intuit has Intuit Intelligence.
Hmm.
Those are great training grounds too, because they don't see outside the walls of that particular app unless it has that functionality and you open up those gates.
Yeah.
All right, so I could go on about that all day long, but if people are interested in going to the next level with AI adoption, I would recommend Smart Accountant AI. So tell us, Jan, what is that and what are the options to engage with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I do a 90-minute masterclass free every month. It's usually the third Thursday of the month, because I want to raise awareness in workflows, and it's all hands on. So you come in and you learn. It's an interactive learn. We have a boot camp right now. It's once a month. It's 3 days. It's 6 hours, 2 hours a day. And then from there, we have implementation sprints that will be starting out every quarter. So it's 4 to 6 weeks where we help the firms grow. And then we do private cohorts where an actual company hires us. We come in and train the entire team. And then we help build out tools that advance their team.
Nice. All right, you can learn about all of that smartaccountant.ai.
Yes,
Correct.
absolutely.
Awesome. Jan, thanks so much for being here with us.
Thanks so much, Joe. Great to see you.